Hey Reddit. Never thought I'd be making a post like this, but here I am, 2 weeks after what was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives, trying to figure out how everything went so wrong. I, 27M, married Karen, 24F, my college sweetheart, and her parents managed to turn our wedding day into a complete nightmare. I met Karen during junior year in college. We had the same economics class, and she sat next to me because she was running late on the first day and it was the only seat left. She borrowed a pen from me, then ended up helping me understand the material because I was completely lost. One study session led to coffee led to dinner, and soon we were inseparable. Karen came from what looked like the perfect family. Her dad Tom, 52M, started as a junior accountant and worked his way up to being CFO of a major company. Her mom Linda, 48F, was this super involved community leader type, PTA president when the kids were in school, organized all the neighborhood events, ran charity auctions, that sort of thing. They lived in this beautiful colonial house in the suburbs where we spent every holiday. Christmas at their house was like something out of a movie, perfect decorations, amazing food, everyone laughing and happy. What really got me was how Tom and Linda seemed to genuinely like each other even after 27 years of marriage. They'd hold hands at family dinners, dance together at parties, and Linda would pack Tom's lunch every day even though he could obviously buy his own. Karen used to tell me how they met in high school. Tom was the quiet math nerd, Linda was the popular cheerleader who surprised everyone by asking him to prom. They worked their way through college together, Linda waitressing to help put Tom through his master's degree, Tom later supporting Linda when she wanted to quit her job to raise the kids. When I proposed to Karen 2 years ago, her parents were thrilled. Linda immediately jumped into wedding planning mode. She had this huge binder full of ideas she'd apparently been collecting since Karen was a teenager. Tom told me he'd been saving for Karen's wedding since the day she was born and to let him handle all the expenses. I tried to protest but he insisted, saying he'd only get to do this once since Karen was his only daughter. The wedding planning was intense but mostly fun. Linda took charge, working with this fancy wedding planner, coordinating with vendors, sending out save the dates and invitations. She and Karen would spend hours picking out everything from flowers to napkin colors. Tom just kept writing checks without complaint, even when Linda decided we absolutely needed those expensive charger plates no one would really notice. Karen was in heaven planning her dream wedding. She'd always wanted a big traditional ceremony like her parents had. We picked this beautiful old church, the same one where her parents got married. Linda found Karen's dress, this gorgeous thing with lace her grandmother had worn at her own wedding. Everything was falling into place perfectly. Then came our wedding day. We followed tradition and stayed apart the night before. I was with my groomsmen at my parents' house, Karen was at her parents' place with her bridesmaids. The plan was for everyone to meet at the church, guys in one prep room, girls in another. I was helping my best man Matt fix his tie when Karen's maid of honor Kate burst into our room looking panicked. She pulled me into the hallway and told me Linda had just dropped a nuclear bomb on Karen while she was getting her hair and makeup done. Apparently, Linda and Tom were getting divorced. Linda had already filed the papers weeks ago and had just decided that this was the perfect moment to tell her daughter. Kate said Linda's exact words were, "I need to be honest with you before you start your marriage. Your father and I are getting divorced. I filed the papers last month. I wanted to wait until after the wedding to tell you but I couldn't stand here watching you start your life with a lie hanging over us." Karen was hysterical. She'd already had her makeup done and it was ruined from crying. The makeup artist was trying to fix it but Karen couldn't stop sobbing. Kate said Linda was just sitting there talking about how marriage shouldn't be about pretending everything's perfect and how she wanted Karen to know the truth before her own wedding. I wanted to go to Karen immediately but everyone kept saying it would be bad luck, that we should stick to tradition. My mom even quoted some old superstition about how seeing the bride early would curse the marriage. Looking back, I should have ignored all of them and gone to comfort my future wife. By the time the ceremony started, everyone knew. You could feel it in the church, all these whispers and sad looks. When the doors opened and Karen started walking down the aisle with Tom, my heart broke. Her eyes were swollen and red even under the makeup. She was barely holding it together. Tom looked like he'd aged 10 years in one morning. The ceremony was a blur. Karen's voice kept cracking during the vows. I could see Linda in the front row dabbing her eyes like she was crying from happiness, not like she'd just destroyed her daughter's big day. The minister kept talking about eternal love and sacred bonds while Karen's parents sat on opposite sides of the aisle avoiding eye contact. The reception was even worse. We'd planned this elegant sit-down dinner for 200 people. The seating chart Linda had spent months perfecting was useless now since she and Tom couldn't be at the same table. Tom started drinking heavily right after the ceremony. Linda kept trying to act normal, making this awful toast about love and truth that made everyone uncomfortable. The breaking point came during what was supposed to be the father-daughter dance. Tom was too drunk by then to stand straight. Karen took one look at him swaying on the dance floor and ran out crying. I found her in the parking lot having a panic attack. We ended up leaving our own reception early. Instead of spending our wedding night at the fancy hotel suite Tom had booked, we sat in a 24-hour diner with our wedding party, Karen still in her wedding dress, eating pancakes at 2 a.m. while she cried on my shoulder. The honeymoon was a disaster too. We'd planned this amazing 2-week trip to Hawaii that Tom and Linda had paid for as their wedding gift. Karen spent most of it either crying or fighting with her parents on the phone. Linda kept calling to explain herself, saying she needed to be honest, that she couldn't stand there lying to her daughter on her wedding day. She actually thought she was doing Karen a favor by telling her then, like it would somehow be worse to wait until after the wedding. Now we're back home and things are getting worse. Tom's been calling constantly, saying he had no idea Linda was going to tell Karen at the wedding. He keeps begging Karen to talk to him, saying he doesn't want to lose his daughter too. Linda's sending these long texts about how Karen needs to understand her position as a woman who spent her whole life putting everyone else first. Karen's completely devastated. She can't look at any wedding photos. She says her whole childhood feels like a lie now. Every happy family memory is tainted because she keeps wondering if her parents were just pretending the whole time. She's barely eating or sleeping. I'm lost about what to do. Part of me wants to tell both Tom and Linda to leave us alone and let Karen heal. But these are her parents. Can we really just cut them out completely? Even if they did something terrible? Karen's talking about canceling our wedding photo order and returning all her parents' wedding gifts. She says she never wants to see either of them again. I understand why she feels this way, but I'm worried she'll regret such a harsh decision later. So Reddit, what do I do? How do I help my wife through this? Should I try to mediate between her and her parents or stay out of it? Has anyone dealt with something similar? Update 1 first, thanks for all the support on my original post. Things have gotten even more complicated, and honestly, I'm still trying to process everything that's happened in the last 2 weeks. Karen finally agreed to meet with her dad Tom for lunch last Saturday. She was really nervous about it, so I went with her. We picked this quiet diner outside of town to avoid running into anyone we knew. When we got there, I barely recognized Tom. He looked like he'd aged a decade in 2 weeks, he'd lost weight, had dark circles under his eyes, and his hands were shaking when he tried to hold his coffee cup. At first, we just sat there in awkward silence. Tom kept opening and closing his mouth like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Finally, he broke down crying right there in the diner. I'd never seen him cry before. This was a man who didn't even tear up at our wedding ceremony. Between sobs, Tom told us he never saw the divorce coming. He thought they were happy. Sure, they had normal marriage issues, but nothing major. Then he dropped the real bomb. Linda had been having an affair with their family friend Mark for the past year. Mark and his wife Jane weren't just friends, they were practically family. They'd known each other for over 20 years. Their kids grew up together, they spent every Thanksgiving and Christmas together, went on family vacations together. Mark and Tom played golf every Sunday. Mark was even at Tom's bachelor party back in the day. Karen used to call them Uncle Mark and Aunt Jane. The worst part? Mark was at our wedding. He gave a toast at the reception about love and loyalty. He hugged Karen and welcomed me to the family. All while knowing he was sleeping with Linda and planning to blow up both their marriages. The truth came out because Jane found emails on their shared computer right after our wedding. Apparently Linda and Mark had been planning to wait until after the wedding to announce they were leaving their spouses. But Linda decided to tell Karen about the divorce early because she felt guilty about lying during the wedding ceremony. She didn't tell Karen about Mark though, that came out when Jane confronted Linda. Karen was physically sick when she heard this. She ran to the bathroom and threw up. I found her sitting on the floor crying, saying she keeps remembering all these moments with Mark and Linda together at family events, wondering if they were sneaking around even then. It gets worse. Through the family grapevine, we learned Linda and Mark didn't even try to be discreet after being caught. They moved into an apartment downtown together less than a week after everything came out. They've been spotted having lunch at expensive restaurants, shopping together, acting like love-struck teenagers instead of people who just destroyed 2 families. The family has completely fractured over this. Linda's sisters are actually defending her. They're saying Tom was emotionally unavailable for years, too focused on work, and Linda deserves to be happy. They're painting her as this trapped housewife who finally found true love. Tom's family and most of their friends are horrified, especially about them dropping this bomb at our wedding. Karen's brother Ryan showed up at our door 3 days ago with a duffel bag. He can't stand being at home anymore. Tom's been drinking heavily, often passing out in his home office surrounded by old family photos. Ryan's angry at Linda for the affair but also mad at Tom for falling apart instead of staying strong for his kids. He's 21, should be enjoying his last year of college, but instead he's watching both his parents implode. Linda keeps trying to justify everything. She sent Karen this long, rambling email about how she and Mark reconnected at a charity gala last year. How they started talking about their unfulfilling marriages, one thing led to another, and they realized they had this deep connection. She wrote about how they tried to fight their feelings but couldn't deny their love. She said she wanted to wait until after the wedding to tell everyone, but the guilt of watching Karen commit to marriage while hiding this secret was too much. Karen couldn't even finish reading the email. She deleted it halfway through. She says she doesn't care about her mom's great romance. All she can think about is every family dinner, every holiday, every special moment from the past year where Linda and Mark were probably sneaking around. She keeps questioning every memory, Was Mark already with her mom when he helped Karen move into her first apartment? Were they together when Linda helped Karen pick out her wedding dress? I'm trying my best to support Karen, but honestly, I feel helpless. She's talking about changing her number and moving to a different city just to get away from all this drama. I understand the impulse, but we both have good jobs here and just signed a year-long lease. Plus, running away won't fix the underlying issues. Tom's drinking is really concerning everyone. Ryan says he found him passed out at his desk twice last week. There were empty whiskey bottles hidden around the house. Karen feels somehow responsible, like she needs to help him but doesn't know how. She's afraid he'll drink himself to death if someone doesn't intervene. The whole situation is just getting worse by the day. Linda and Mark seem to have no shame. They're going out to all the family's regular places, running into people they know, acting like what they did was perfectly normal. Jane is understandably furious and has been telling anyone who will listen about what they did. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm starting to think Karen's right about cutting contact with Linda, at least for now. Every time she reaches out, she just makes things worse with her attempts to justify what she did. But what about Tom? He's clearly not handling this well, but he's also a victim in all this. Do we try to help him? Push him to get help for the drinking? Stay out of it completely? Ryan's planning to stay with us for a while, at least until things calm down. Karen's glad to have her brother here, but it's also a constant reminder of how their family has fallen apart. Any advice on how to handle this mess? How do we support Tom without getting dragged too deep into the drama? And how do I help Karen deal with this level of betrayal from not just her mom but someone she viewed as a second father? Update: 2 things have gone from bad to worse in ways I never imagined possible. Last weekend was Karen's brother Ryan's college graduation ceremony. Despite everything, Ryan wanted both his parents there. He said he didn't want family drama to ruin his graduation like it ruined our wedding. We agreed to go to support him, thinking everyone could be civil for just one day. We couldn't have been more wrong. We arrived early to help Ryan get ready. Everything seemed okay at first. Tom had actually made an effort. He was wearing a new suit and looked more put together than he had in weeks. But we could smell alcohol on his breath at 10 a.m. Karen tried to talk to him about it, but he brushed her off, saying he needed something to help him get through seeing Linda. Then Linda arrived. She didn't come alone, she brought Mark with her. She actually brought her affair partner to her son's graduation. They walked in holding hands like teenagers, Linda wearing this bright red dress that stood out in the crowd. Karen froze when she saw them. I had to help her find a bathroom quickly because she was on the verge of a panic attack. To make it worse, Linda had gotten them seats right behind where the family was supposed to sit. She kept trying to make small talk with everyone like nothing was wrong. She even had the nerve to ask Karen how married life was going. Mark just sat there with this uncomfortable smile, trying to act like he belonged there. Tom had been keeping it together, barely, until Linda leaned over and loudly asked Ryan if he'd saved seats for the whole family. That's when Tom lost it. He stood up right in the middle of the dean's speech and started shouting about how Mark was supposed to be his best friend, how they'd betrayed him, how they'd ruined everything. Security had to escort him out. Everyone was staring. Some people were filming on their phones. Ryan missed getting his diploma on stage because he was out in the parking lot trying to calm his dad down. When he came back in, the ceremony was almost over. Linda was crying, making a scene about how Tom had ruined another special day. Meanwhile, Mark just sat there looking embarrassed, like he was some innocent bystander instead of the cause of all this. After the ceremony, Linda tried to get Ryan to take a family photo with her and Mark. She actually called Mark his new stepdad. Ryan lost it. He told her to go to hell and left with us. We ended up having a small celebration at our apartment instead of the big party Linda had planned at her and Mark's new place. But here's where it gets even worse. That night, Karen got a call from Jane, Mark's ex-wife. Jane had been doing some digging since discovering the affair, and what she found was shocking. This wasn't Mark's first rodeo, not by a long shot. Jane had proof, emails, hotel receipts, credit card statements, showing Mark had cheated with at least 2 other women over the years. One was his former secretary, another was a yoga instructor. Jane had caught him both times but forgave him for their kids' sake. She'd never told anyone because she was embarrassed and wanted to protect their children. Karen was stunned. She immediately called Linda to confront her with this information. Linda broke down and admitted something that made everything even worse. She'd known about one of Mark's past affairs. She'd actually helped Jane through it years ago, letting her cry on her shoulder while knowing the whole story. But Linda claimed her relationship with Mark was different. She actually said she believed he'd changed because their love was special and real, unlike his meaningless flings with the other women. She said she understood if Karen couldn't forgive her right away but hoped she'd eventually see how happy Mark made her. Karen hung up on her. When she told me about the conversation, she said she actually feels sorry for her mom now. Not just angry, but genuinely sad that Linda threw away a 27-year marriage for someone who would probably cheat on her too. The one bright spot in all this is that the graduation incident finally convinced Tom to get help. Ryan and Karen managed to get him to check into a rehab facility the next day. He's committed to staying for at least 30 days. Karen visits him twice a week. He's doing better, starting to process everything without alcohol clouding his judgment. Meanwhile, Linda seems to be living in complete denial. She keeps posting on social media about living her truth and finding happiness at any age. She and Mark just took a romantic trip to Paris, the same place she and Tom went for their 25th anniversary last year. She posted photos of them kissing in front of the Eiffel Tower, using hashtags like #TrueLove and #NeverTooLate. The family is still divided. Linda's sisters have blocked Karen on social media for choosing sides. Tom's family is rallying around him and the kids. Most of their old family friends have distanced themselves from Linda and Mark. Karen's finally agreed to see a grief counselor. She says she's not just grieving her parents' marriage, but the loss of every childhood memory and her entire image of what love and marriage should be. Update 3. This will probably be my last update. A lot has changed since my last post, and I think it's time to share where everything stands now. Tom completed his 30-day rehab program and has been sober for 5 months. He joined an AA group and goes to meetings 3 times a week. The change in him is remarkable. He's gained back some weight, started exercising, and even went back to work part-time. His company was surprisingly supportive and kept his position open. The biggest surprise came when Tom started dating again, very casually. It's nothing serious, just coffee dates with a woman he met through his tennis club. Karen was worried at first, but seeing her dad smile again and get excited about simple things like picking a restaurant for a date has helped her heal too. As for Linda and Mark, well, karma works in mysterious ways. 2 months ago, Linda found out Mark was cheating on her with his yoga instructor, Emma, 28F. The same thing happened with his previous affairs: secret phone calls, hidden credit card charges, mysterious weekend work trips. The irony? Linda caught them the same way Jane caught her and Mark, through emails left open on a shared laptop. According to family friends, Linda was blindsided. She really thought she was different from Mark's other women. She really believed their connection was special. Linda tried to come crawling back to the family after that. She showed up at our apartment unannounced, crying about how she'd made a terrible mistake. She wanted to know if Tom would take her back, if they could try to rebuild their family. Karen didn't let her in. She just said, "You chose this, Mom. Now you have to live with it." Tom refused to even discuss reconciliation. He told Linda through his lawyer that the divorce was proceeding as planned. Linda moved out of her and Mark's apartment and is staying with one of her sisters now. She's been posting cryptic quotes about betrayal and karma on social media, which would be funny if it wasn't so sad. Karen's done amazing work in therapy. She's stronger now, more accepting that her parents aren't the perfect people she thought they were. Last week, we finally looked at our wedding photos together. She said they're not ruined anymore, they're just part of our story, showing how we stayed strong even when everything was falling apart around us. The biggest news is that we're moving to Seattle next month. I got offered a promotion that would mean relocating, and Karen thinks the fresh start feels right. She's already found a job there too, something she's really excited about. Ryan graduated and got a job in Boston. He's doing well, building his own life away from all the drama. He stays in regular contact with Tom and Karen but keeps his distance from Linda. We've worked out a system for family events going forward. Karen and Ryan spend time with Tom for major holidays. They send cards to Linda but maintain firm boundaries. Tom's family has embraced this arrangement, always making sure to schedule celebrations when they know Linda won't be around. Linda's latest Facebook post suggests she's finding herself through yoga and meditation retreats. Mark married Emma 3 weeks after his divorce from Linda was finalized. No one from either family attended the wedding. Sometimes the best ending isn't the happy one where everyone forgives each other and becomes one big family again. Sometimes it's about accepting that relationships change, that people aren't who we thought they were, and that's okay. The real healing comes from letting go of what you thought should happen and embracing what actually is. I want to thank everyone who's followed our story and offered support. Your advice helped us navigate some really dark times. We're in a better place now, even if it's not the place we expected to be.